Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning. The alarm goes off at 6:47 a.m. You hit snooze twice. You're tired. Not just physically tired, but that deep soul-level tired that no amount of coffee ever really fixes. You drag yourself to the bathroom, stare at your reflection, and think, is this it? Is this what working yourself to the bone is supposed to feel like? You've been doing everything they told you to do. You went to school. You got the degree. You got the job. You're making decent money, more than your parents ever made at your age. And yet, something still feels missing. You scroll through Instagram on the way to work, and there he is. Some guy you vaguely know from high school, leaning against a sleek black luxury car, sunglasses on, grinning like he doesn't have a single worry in the world. 2,000 likes, comments flooding in, goals. Living the dream. Bro, you made it. You made it. Those 3 words hit different when you're sitting in traffic in a 5-year-old Honda, half asleep, counting down the hours until Friday. But here's the thing. Nobody tells you. That guy in the photo, he's not living the dream. He's financing it at 7.9% APR. And what's really disturbing, what nobody talks about, is that this isn't an accident. The system was designed to make you feel that way. The scroll, the envy, the sudden burning desire to upgrade your life. Wealthy people, truly wealthy people, aren't buying luxury cars to feel successful. They want you to buy them. And today, we're going to find out exactly why. Meet Marcus. He's 28. He lives in a mid-sized American city, not New York, not LA. Somewhere normal, Columbus, Ohio, or Charlotte, North Carolina. You know the place. He works in sales, makes about $65,000 a year. Not bad, not rich. Comfortable enough that he doesn't worry about rent, but not comfortable enough that he ever stops worrying about money. Marcus is sharp, ambitious. He grew up watching his dad work overtime at a warehouse and come home smelling like sweat and sacrifice. He swore he'd do better. And in many ways, he has. But Marcus has a problem, and it's a problem millions of people have, and almost nobody admits to it. Marcus needs people to know he's doing well. Not just be doing well, look like he's doing well. There's a difference, a massive, life-altering difference. And Marcus hasn't figured that out yet. See, Marcus has this running scoreboard in his head. His college roommate just got promoted. His cousin bought a house in the suburbs. His co-worker keeps talking about the weekend trip to Vegas she just booked. And Marcus is driving a 2018 Civic with a small dent in the bumper that he keeps telling himself he'll fix eventually. He doesn't hate the car, but he hates what the car says about him, or at least what he thinks it says about him. And that distinction right there, that's where the trap begins. It starts on a random Saturday afternoon. Marcus is passing a dealership on his way to the grocery store. Big glass windows, spotlights, a gleaming black BMW 5 Series, rotating slowly on a platform like it's royalty. He tells himself he's just going to look. He walks in. The air smells like leather and ambition. A salesman, calm, friendly, perfectly dressed, shakes his hand like Marcus is a man who belongs here, and something shifts inside him, something chemical. He sits in the driver's seat. The leather wraps around him like it was built for him specifically. The dashboard glows, the stitching is perfect. There's a quiet that only expensive cars have, like the outside world suddenly stops existing. He doesn't want to get out. The salesman talks, smooth, practiced, reassuring. It's actually very manageable monthly. Most of our customers are surprised. He talks about prestige, about how this car is a statement, about resale value. Which is mostly not true, but that's another story. And Marcus thinks about that Instagram photo, about the 2,000 likes, about you made it. He thinks about Monday morning when he pulls into the office parking lot. He thinks about his dad, coming home smelling like the warehouse, and Marcus signs the papers. The first week is incredible. He drives to work and feels like a completely different person. Sits up a little straighter, walks a little taller. The parking lot glances, he notices them. His co-worker says, "Marcus, is that your car?" Bro. His boss raises an eyebrow and smiles. He posts a photo. Not too obvious. Just a casual shot from the driver's seat. Steering wheel in frame. Moody lighting. One word caption. New chapter. 112 likes in 4 hours. Clean. Okay, I see you. Adulting done right. Adulting done right. This is the part where it feels worth it. Where every financial advisor's warning sounds like old person pessimism. Where the anxiety hasn't kicked in yet. This is the window the car industry lives inside. This dopamine hit. This 2-week honeymoon. This moment where the car feels like it changed your life. And it did change his life. Just not the way he thinks. Month 1. The payment hits. $687 a month. Marcus winces slightly, then tells himself it's fine. He budgeted for this. He's good. Then the insurance bill arrives. Because a BMW 5 Series doesn't insure like a Civic. He's paying $240 a month now instead of $110. Month 2. A small warning light. Nothing serious. But the dealership charges $180 just to plug in the diagnostic computer. He pays it and doesn't tell anyone. By month 3, the math is becoming uncomfortable. Car payment $687, insurance $240. Fuel, because a V6 drinks premium gas, $180. Parking, because he moved to a garage spot so nothing dings it, $75. That's $1,182 a month on a car, on a $65,000 salary. After taxes, he's bringing home maybe $4,100 a month. Over a quarter of his take-home income, gone, every single month, to a depreciating machine that is worth less today than it was yesterday. But Marcus doesn't look at it that way. Not yet. He looks at it the way most people do, monthly. And that right there is exactly what the entire consumer credit industry is built on. Not the total cost, the monthly payment. Break it down small enough, and almost anything feels affordable. Marcus starts making small adjustments, stops going out to dinner as much, skips the gym membership renewal, tells himself it's temporary, just while he adjusts to the new budget. He stops putting money into his 401k above the minimum match, just for a few months. Just to make things easier. And here's where the trap fully closes, because it's never a few months. Lifestyle inflation doesn't walk backward. It only moves forward. And now Marcus is locked in. If he loses this job, he loses the car. If he loses the car, he loses the thing that makes him look successful to everyone watching. The job he took for the paycheck is now the paycheck he needs for the job of maintaining appearances. He bought a car, and the car bought him. Now let's talk about Dion. Same city as Marcus, same age, same income, $65,000 a year. Same Tuesday morning alarm going off too early, same Instagram scroll, same temptation. Because Dion saw that luxury car on the lot too. He drove past the dealership, he thought about it. But Dion did something different. He went home and did the math. Not the monthly payment math, the real math. He asked himself, if I invest $687 a month instead of paying it to a car dealership, every single month for 5 years, what happens? At a modest 8% average annual return, that's roughly $51,000. Add the insurance difference, the maintenance difference, the fuel difference. That number climbs past $85,000. In 5 years. While Marcus was driving in circles, Dion was building a foundation. Dion kept his used Toyota Camry, clean, reliable, paid off. No one was sliding into his DMs about his car. No co-workers raised their eyebrows. His Instagram posts got normal, regular engagement, and Dion was absolutely, completely fine with that. Because Dion had figured something out that Marcus hadn't. Status is a game with no finish line. There will always be someone with a newer car, a bigger house, a fancier watch. If you play that game, you will play it forever, and the house always wins. Dion wasn't playing that game. Dion was playing a different one. Here's the part that should disturb you. The luxury car industry doesn't just sell cars, it sells identity. And it's extraordinarily good at it because it understands something about human psychology that most people never stop to examine. We are social animals. Hardwired, at a biological level, to care what other people think of us. This isn't weakness, it's evolution. For most of human history, being rejected from your group meant death. Social status was survival. The problem is that our brains haven't updated for 2025. We still feel that primal pull, that need to be seen, respected, validated, and consumer culture has learned to weaponize it. Think about the Instagram algorithm. It doesn't show you an average Tuesday, it shows you highlights, the vacation, the promotion, the new car, and your brain, your ancient, status-obsessed brain, compares your whole life to someone else's highlight reel and comes up short. Every time. That feeling of coming up short, that's a market. That insecurity you feel scrolling at 11 p.m., that's $1 billion industry's target audience. They don't sell you a car, they sell you relief from that feeling, temporarily. And here's the darker layer, the one that truly rich people understand. When you spend $1,200 a month maintaining the appearance of wealth, you are transferring wealth to the people who already have it. The car manufacturer, the insurance company, the bank collecting interest on your loan, the dealership, the premium gas company, every month, like clockwork. Regardless of how your month went, you are paying for the appearance of their success, and they are investing in the reality of theirs. Truly wealthy people, we're talking generational wealth, often drive normal cars. Warren Buffett famously drove a beat-up Cadillac for years. Mark Zuckerberg drives a modest Honda. Jeff Bezos drove an old Honda Accord until he was already a billionaire, because they already knew what they had. They didn't need to perform it for strangers. The car you drive to prove you've made it. Is the car keeping you from actually making it? It's year 3 for Marcus. The car is still beautiful, still gets the same glances in the parking lot. But something has changed. Marcus has changed. He's stressed in a way he can't fully explain to anyone. It's not one big thing. It's the accumulation of 1,000 small ones. The anxiety every time an unexpected expense shows up. The mild panic when his car makes a new sound. The way he lies awake on Sunday nights running numbers in his head. He was passed up for a promotion at work. His savings account has $1,400 in it. He's 31 now, and the retirement planning website says he should have close to $50,000 saved by this age. He has $1,400, and then one night, late, he's sitting in the parking lot of his apartment building, still in the car because he doesn't quite want to go inside yet. He opens his banking app, and he just looks at it. The payment schedule on the loan, how much he's paid over 3 years, how much he still owes, how much the car is worth now versus what he paid. He pulls up an investment calculator, types in $687, types in 36 months, hits calculate. His car looked expensive. His future didn't. $31,000. That's what he could have had. Growing quietly, working while he slept, compounding, building something real. Instead, he has a car that's worth $18,000 less than when he bought it, and a savings account with $1,400. He didn't buy a car. He bought 3 years of people thinking he was successful, and the rent on those 3 years of opinion was everything. That's the moment Marcus understands something he can never unknow. Status isn't wealth. Attention isn't security. Admiration from people you barely know isn't worth the freedom you traded for it. Meanwhile, Dion. It's the same 3 years later, same city, same origin point. Dion has $52,000 in an investment account, growing every month. He's got a healthy emergency fund. He's been maxing out his Roth IRA. He took a solo trip to Portugal last year, paid in cash. And recently, he used his savings as a down payment on a small rental property that now earns him $650 a month in passive income. He's 31 years old, and money is starting to make money for him. While he sleeps, his car is still the Camry. It has 94,000 miles on it. He's thinking about upgrading soon, maybe to a slightly newer used car. Not because he needs people to see it, but because he wants a backup camera. Practical, boring, free. Does anyone slide into his DMs about his investment account? No. Does anyone post goals under his compound interest statements? No. But Dion doesn't care. Because the audience he's performing for isn't Instagram, it's his future self. Here's what nobody tells you when you're 25 and staring at a showroom floor. Real freedom doesn't look like a car. Real freedom is being able to say no to a job you hate. Real freedom is waking up on a Monday without that Sunday night dread. Real freedom is knowing that if something breaks, you can handle it. That if opportunity shows up, you have the capital to meet it. Real freedom is options, and options are built slowly, quietly, in the background, while everyone else is performing. The wealthy people who want you buying expensive cars, they understand this better than anyone. They understand that every dollar you spend on appearance is a dollar that isn't compounding, a dollar that isn't working, a dollar that isn't building the kind of quiet, boring, powerful freedom that actually changes your life. They also understand that someone has to buy the cars, stay in the hotels, wear the watches, and pay the interest on all of it. Someone has to keep the machine running. They just made sure it wasn't going to be them. Marcus figures this out eventually, later than he should have, but he figures it out. He finishes the loan, drives the car another year with no payment, stacks the $687 a month aggressively, lives on less than he earns for the first time in years. It's uncomfortable at first, like coming off a drug, but the anxiety starts to lift. The Sunday nights get quieter. The banking app becomes something he's not afraid to open. He's not starting over. He's starting, for real this time. So why do rich people want you to buy expensive cars? Because when you spend $1,200 a month on a vehicle, you can't invest it. Because when all your money is committed to monthly payments, you can't take risks. Because when you're financially stretched, you stay employed, you stay predictable, you stay in the machine. And while you're maintaining appearances, they're acquiring assets. While you're leasing, they're owning. While you're performing wealth, they're building it. The game isn't rigged against you. But you have to know the rules. And nobody teaches you the rules. They don't teach this in school. They don't show it on television. The ads don't mention it. Social media certainly doesn't reflect it. But here it is, plainly. Wealth is not what you display. Wealth is what you keep and what you grow. Freedom is not how your car makes strangers feel. Freedom is how your financial decisions make your future self feel. Peace is not in the parking lot attention. Peace is in the account that keeps growing, whether or not anyone is watching. You don't have to drive a Beta. You don't have to live like a monk. Enjoy your life. Spend on things that genuinely bring you joy. But know the difference between joy and performance. Know the difference between living well and looking like you live well. Those are two completely different financial destinies. One man drove a car that turned heads. The other built a life that turned the corner. The question isn't what car you drive. The question is, who's really in the driver's seat?